copies in case a packet.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Jake Schumer. I'm Drew's.
Met you
Oh,
before.
hi,
Drew's man.
Jacob.
Hi.
All right.
Sorry, have we met before? I'm not sure.
Yeah, we have. I'm Penny. Usually my
okay.
hair's down or something.
That's me. Yeah,
Nice
I
to
think,
meet you.
and we've talked on the phone.
And I'm Bonnie.
So. Hi, Bonnie.
Yeah.
I know we talked.
Yeah.
And I was here like for some meetings like 2 weeks ago.
Yes. Yep. You were. And for code enforcement. Did you do code enforcement? No, just the planning board.
I did the city. I did the commission meeting, and I don't think I've ever done one. Actually.
Wow. Spelling.
Did you need a packet or did Drew give you? You've got.
We've got one there we put out for Drew.
These are the issues.
Is this from a member of the board or?
That's I put that there. It's from a resident.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then this goes in our packet.
Let's see. Yeah.
I did a letter to the doctor today.
Did you?
Because I told you about the nurse, right? Where she just played off my pain.
No, Janelle was telling me.
It was bad, Penny. I just couldn't believe it. You know, not that it's going to do anything. I just want the doctor to know.
She's a heartless bitch.
That's how I feel. That's exactly how I feel.
Probably. They probably get that a
pain I was
lot.
in.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they do. You know, but someone like me was totally honest about it, and she didn't want to listen to me at all.
Equals. Oh my.
Let me text Bonnie. You're sure, Penny?
I am positive. Seriously. Doesn't. I'm here.
I appreciate it. Penny's going to do the meeting tonight. She's here anyway for a couple items on the agenda, so I'll be home.
I think that's it.
Shortly. He's probably like, damn, now I gotta come home.
Empty bid equal 0. This should be a 0. Backspace 0.
I don't suppose I need to wait for Larry.
I'm telling you, I can do it.
Okay, I know you can. I appreciate it. I really do. Did I scan this? The first one that I sent to you. Did you see what I did?
I saw that you said disregard it.
Yes, you know why?
Why?
Put everything from the freaking car there.
Oh.
I was like, how did I do that? And it was all supposed to be, I know, the dental office. I am. Penny's going to do it for me.
Thanks, Penny.
I know, right? I don't know. It just depends on what the doctor says tomorrow. I meet with him at 2:30.
Go home, get some
So,
rest.
I appreciate that, you guys.
Get on your back.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll see you all.
How are you?
I'm well.
I'm well. Ready for an exciting night?
Whatever.
Thank you. Yes, please. Yes, I know. Okay. Oh, he talked. Yeah, I think so. Okay. Right, you're gonna step down from And because it's not an advisory. Yeah. Okay. Nice to meet you, by the way. I think so. Yeah. And he's very busy. Yeah. 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 He has some meetings. So.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he told me
Hey, Larry. Bonnie, I told Bonnie to go home, so I'd do it. She was hurting bad still.
That's why I came to see you, because I stopped in there to get my
Big sure.
and I saw how bad she was. I thought, you'll see plenty of and I came in and
Yeah, no, I was up in the mountains.
We had like 3 years ago.
Any presentations? Good. If he's over there still, head on. This one's full.
I was just in Minnesota. Went to the Minnesota State Fair. No, my girlfriend. No, it was a girls' weekend.
Hey, weren't you the one working on the Reedy Creek?
Yes.
Whatever came of that, whatever.
She has a
As far as I know,
lake house in Wisconsin.
everybody's just kind of waiting for the legislature to
So,
have a solution in there tomorrow.
Hey.
I'll find out when you do.
Yeah.
I didn't have any like inside knowledge. I just
Yeah.
like
Good morning.
I'm a little surprised about these two, but it's still happening.
Well, I guess as long as they're meeting their needs for now, you know.
It's the largest state fair in the country. It was really fun. We did not, they did not when we were there, but they did have cattle judging. Sheep shearing. Oh, it's amazing, yes. It's a humongous facility. I mean, apparently lasts 11 days. They have events, they have all this kind of crazy stuff going on. And food, they have 165 different things fried on a stick. I wish the building wasn't going to be. I know. Jesus Christ. Exactly. That was pretty false. This music is just so tight. It's not
Thank you, ladies. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yep. Got it.
Refusing.
Yes, I am refusing. Yes.
Me too, I thought, really? Right next door. Oh no, you're right, you're right.
Thank you. I'm remembering a list at this planning board like 3 years ago, or 4 years ago.
Must have been 4 planning.
Okay, no worries.
Some intervening events kind of in time. I guess it would have been 2018, so I don't know if that makes sense.
Sure.
Scott opened the meeting last time. I bet the minutes are long. It says, Vice Chair and Scott Spratt called the meeting. Well, he might have. I was trying to remember. I don't think he was. This may have been. I think it must have been a hold of it in the meeting. People will have to ask.
Hey, man.
Okay, here's the big question. Did you call them to order what's smart? Like, I thought so. That's a mistake. Yeah, we were all here.
Yeah, we found it.
Right.
How is everybody?
Hello. That's a huge talk. It's very cute.
It's close to a motorcycle or something.
That's right.
Home working.
We had mahjong today. Yeah, it was fun. There were 7. No, she's hosting next week. She texted. I'm hosting next week.
While she was still in
Yeah,
France.
yes. For 3 wow, yeah. I have not been fought. I have to go on Facebook.
Yeah, she has lots of.
Yes, she always does. What else is happening?
I find it first.
Yes, we did too. Yeah. Right.
Oh, yeah, I knew you did that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I saw it as Roger. Well, they're closed for the week. Okay, so did she tell you we are going to do? Should we do compost too for the candid farm? Yeah, because there's only two elections. There's Leanne and Jane.
I'm so excited.
There's me, and then there's yes. And that's not just two, somebody was why I did send invitations out. Yes, it's 2, it's like 2 weeks before early voting starts. And correct. I was very excited to sign up. Exactly. Yeah. I was sorry. This woman who's one.
Oh, yeah. She was that night.
She said, my kindergartner came home talking about race. How disgusting. That's what I That's what I said. So I had that picture, I was on the table, and I was across the TV station.
You tired yet? Just you tired yet? I'm thinking about it
I'm
more
pretty
and more.
sure, pretty colorful shirt.
I haven't seen her. 5 hours?
Welcome home. I did too.
Yeah, it really did. Really did. I brought them home when they. I'm not a big picture taker, but I did. I got a couple. I'll show you after the meeting of the cabin. Just did the cabin around, yeah. Jacob, I have a paper that needs Drew's signature. Can you sign for him, even though it's a meeting you weren't at?
Is it an ordinance?
No, it's an interlocal agreement from a meeting, last meeting. I just forgot to get him to sign it.
Is it reviewed for legality?
Yeah.
Or like as in is that one?
Yes.
To sign it, is it
Yeah.
reviewed for legality?
Yes.
And he looked at it.
Yeah.
Approved this.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looked at it.
Yeah, it was
text
a-
him.
Sure, go ahead. It was on I think the last agenda.
No, you were early today.
He could have been.
Okay, we call the City Flagler Beach Planning and Architectural Review Board, Tuesday, September 6th, to order. Members, stand and say the pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I guess roll call.
Scott Chavis,
Here.
Joanne Salmon,
Here.
Catherine Fine, Scott Spradley, Brenda Witherspoon, Chair Pizzuli.
Here.
Also present is Jacob Schumer, in for Attorney Drew Smith, and Larry Torino, our planner, and myself, Penny Overstreet.
Thank you. Approval of the meeting minutes from August 2nd.
There is a correction. It should say chairman. Not Scott, that was from the month before.
I was here last one. Any other notes, corrections?
What item would that be under, Joanne? I'm
The
sorry.
first one says vice chairman, Scott Sprout.
And then yours? Your name's spelled wrong?
My name.
Yep.
My name is G-Y-S. So Y-S.
Yeah, mine is Joanne, not Jonah, page 2.
Yours on the first page?
Meeting notes. Item 2.
Okay.
My contact somewhere else. It's not uncommon for me.
I probably said it wrong.
I don't know if it matters. No, you did.
Oh, I see yours. Okay. All right.
Anything else from the meeting minutes?
Just I would ask that whoever motions to approve them as amended, and I've noted the corrections for Bonnie.
I'll move to approve as corrected. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Old business, any old business? Any new business application OE 220901, application request for annual outdoor entertainment permit, Golden Magnolia.
Chairman, I'd just like to let you know that Member Witherspoon has filed a Form 8B, a voting conflict, as she is a neighbor within 200 feet of that establishment. So she can participate in the conversations, she just will refrain from voting.
Larry, is there anything we need to talk about, or it's just a standard outdoor entertainment license?
Yes,
Oh.
it's filed through the city clerk's office.
Have they had music before?
They have, and they were unaware that even an outdoor speaker just playing music from a stream service or a radio requires the outdoor entertainment permit, and it was brought to their attention when they were going through the process with their neighbor.
Scott, any comments?
I guess quite honestly, just the whole thing confuses me. We told the guy next door no, because the neighbors didn't like it. Now we're telling the guy next door it's okay. And I'm confused. If anyone can shed light on this, I'd be happy to listen.
I'm trying to pull his application up real quick. So he doesn't elaborate on his application. I believe the applicant is here as well and can speak for himself. You could limit this to only the radio playing that he has been doing since he opened, and probably the former owner was doing as well. But if you don't put any limitations on it, he would be able, if he chose to, and the permit was approved, he would be able to bring in a live band or anything else.
And that's not our,
Did you state your name?
I'm John Wood, I'm Golden Magnolia. We want to do what we've been doing for 15 years, which is just to have the background music at like a restaurant. Any restaurant we have, we do occasionally have an event there. We have always maintained a good communication with the neighbors. We've never had a complaint. The intent of our whole facility is to be peaceful and calm, and so we're not intending on having loud music blaring all the time. We just want to have the typical environment you would have in a restaurant, or if someone were to have a wedding there. But we would not have things that would be to the level of like a bar.
Can the application narrow this down to that?
You can. Would you be opposed to them approving it to just the streaming of music as you have now, the radio,
Excluding.
and not have any,
live music.
yeah, no live events, no live music outside or
Outside, I don't know if we
Actually, we can be a little bit more detailed, so the venue is open for weddings, so that's
Could you state your name?
Amanda Benjamin, I'm the coordinator. So, we do have, the opportunity for clients to, if they wish, they wanna bring in someone, or we haven't yet clearly, but it is something that we were considering with it being a wedding venue. But, it would also be, literally, on a daily basis, so it wouldn't be like a constant thing, so if there was a few times, that we had to apply an application for those dates, we would be definitely going to do that, and only have the ambient music, that's our goal here.
that's up to the board. I was just trying to get you to explain more.
Did that help?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it comes down to how you're going to behave, and same with the guy next door. We didn't know if he could behave or not, and then then it's up to the enforcement, decibels, and all the fun things we have to go through with that. But the bottom line is, if you guys decide to have a 4-piece band outside and play rock and roll, there's nothing right now that says you can't do that.
Nothing.
All the neighbors have just got done telling us how much it upsets them.
Well, I think also you have to take into consideration what our business is. It would not be in our benefit to do that because we're having people that are going there to get massages, it's a spa. It's not a bar where people are coming to get intoxicated and be rowdy. That would actually hurt our business. We wouldn't want that.
I understand that, and I think as long as it's in the permit asking for it to be the lower level, for lack of a better term, then I'm fine with the whole thing. What I don't want is you guys get an open permit to do whatever you want. The guy next door comes back and says, wait a minute, all the people are okay with him doing it, but not with me. We got a problem here. And I'm trying to look at it from the city's point of view, saying,
Absolutely.
how do you say yes to one, no to the other?
Right.
So if you guys don't mind limiting it, it's up to you folks, and obviously, ultimately up to the commission. But put it in writing that that's what you're going to do, and I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I think the best suggestion was when we do have specific events, then we come for those in particular. Again, we wouldn't be looking for something that would be rowdy or anything, but it may be different than if someone's going to have a wedding. There's going to be music at a wedding.
And just for clarification for the board, so they understand, if you put that in the order, in the permit, that it is for the ambient music only, and if the applicant wants to have a wedding with a DJ or a 4-piece band, string band, whatever it is, that they would have to come to the city and have a special event permit approved. But just so you know, special event permits, unless they require city sponsorship through city staff having to work from something where they would owe the city money or asking for an exemption so they don't have to pay the city, those generally don't go before the commission. big events like Tommy Tent, where we're closing streets down or the police are having to participate, those type of events do come before the commission. But regular small events on private property, they get permits, but they don't. It's handled through staff. So there would be no notice to the neighbor. That's what I'm saying. There wouldn't be a notice to the neighbors. There wouldn't be an agenda out.
But they would get a permit for it, and if there are issues with that permit, if they did make too much noise, when they came before you to get a second permit, you would be able to bring it before the commission. Or stop them.
Or staff could reject it.
Staff could reject it.
Based on.
Right. Could. Maybe not. I don't know.
Depends what the issue is.
And if we did have an event, the music would be inside.
We can always make that.
Well, inside doesn't. You can have anything you want inside. It's the outside that triggers any permits.
Yeah, we're not considering to have
We just
bands
look-
outside.
No, but we just want to be forward with, because the same idea, we felt the same way, we're right next door, we just had this conversation in a different way. So I wouldn't be completely fair and make that clear. Definitely, that is not our goal or intention. Our goal would be to, again, if we could even solve it by making it indoor, that would even, make it more.
Because indoors, you don't need a permit.
They wouldn't need a permit for a band or a DJ if it was indoors. So you could approve it if it makes you feel more comfortable. You could just outright approve it, and they never have to come back for anything. Just every year they're reviewed. If they're bad, then they have to come back through the process again. Or you could approve it with just the speaker music, no live music.
No life.
You can't control the content of what type of music,
Right.
but you can say how they could have it.
So you added 8 speakers outside. You have one inside, and you've added the 8 speakers outside, and they would be playing the same music that's playing inside, which is soft.
Correct, because
Okay,
people
so you got,
want to go there to relax around the pool and just to have, it's a lot more relaxing to have some music than to have.
so you would have no stage, no live.
No.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If you can stay up at the podium, appreciate it. I want to say, first of all, I don't see this as anything like the Life's a Beach application that we've had a number of hearings on. It's black and white. I don't want to see this group be punished for the other one's sins. I mean, Life's a Beach had documented complaints over an extended period of time, which weighed heavily with this board. By the same measure, what you have been doing all along, which has generated no complaints, is all you're wanting to continue. So I just don't see the two as being anything alike. I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, it's been inside, so there wouldn't be any complaints. Oh, we
No, it
have
hasn't.
had it outside?
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
had these 8 speakers outside?
Yes.
It's been there.
Okay, I didn't realize that, I thought you only had.
They're so low in volume that people,
Okay,
I'm sure
thank
neighbors
you,
can't.
thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, no, it's so I just don't think they should be punished for what has happened next door. And I think it's also noteworthy that a lot of the complaints about next door and the noise that was generated had to do with those either with Golden Magnolia or otherwise because they didn't want the noise. So they're not going to generate noise. That's the whole point of it. So I for one would be in favor of approving the application as is. Thank you.
I'll like to address you briefly when it comes.
Okay, so I'm actually going to go to the public then. We should not take a seat for that. Anyone from the public have something to say?
Tom Waterston, 1102 South Central. I have a letter to read from the Montgomerys, if I might, and the Montgomerys are the ones closest to the Golden Magnolia, and this is Brendan Montgomery's letter. I can change my voice a few octaves higher if that makes it more convincing. This is for, as I've stated several times before the PARB board and the city commission, when my husband Calvin and I purchased our home more than 20 years ago, we first made sure that it was in the right location. We felt it was protected by what was then the White Orchid and by other businesses that respected our right to the quiet enjoyment of our home. In the 20-some years that we've owned our home, we have never heard disturbing music or sounds coming from what is now the Golden Magnolia. We recently learned that there have been speakers at the hotel for nearly 10 years. We had no idea because it had never been a problem and we never heard music. Based on that history of respecting the neighbors, my husband and I both support granting the Golden Magnolia an outdoor entertainment permit. And then I'm here also to support the outdoor entertainment permit because they meet the requirements on your list of grounds that you would or would not get a permit. In particular, 5, they have great parking there. They have 28 spaces and 10 rooms in a spa. And then, most importantly, is number 7 on your list. Would it have an adverse effect on property owners within 200 feet? My wife and I are among those property owners, and we believe that it wouldn't. And as was stated by the Golden Magnolia, music at spas and high-end resorts is typically ambient to enhance tranquility, not disruptive. The music isn't meant to be entertainment per se, but to encourage audience participation, but rather to be subtle, unobtrusive, and atmospheric. So I expect the Golden Magnolia will adhere to that because historically they've been excellent neighbors and respectful of their neighbors. So we support the permits going to them.
State your name, address.
Derek Woodvance, 112 South 11th Street. We live across 11th Street from the Golden Magnolia. We were the former owners of the White Orchid, and it's probably our fault that they didn't know they needed a permit for that sound. Because apparently we didn't either. We owned it for 8 years and never had a permit to play the music, usually from 8 to around 6. And as everyone has said, it's background music. We live right across the streets. I can't hear it all day long. I can't hear the music at all. The only time I can hear it is if I'm walking down 11th Street and I'm between the gap between the 2 buildings. Then you can hear it from my home, less than 200 feet away. No one knows about it. So I'm in support of granting them the permit.
Anyone else from the public? Seeing none, we close. Okay.
Heather Motivance, 112 South 11th Street. I as well am in favor of granting the permit. As Deb said, we played music at the time it ended. Mark and Fred have played that music on those speakers since 1995. And as the Golden stated, the goal is to create relaxation and tranquility. It's nothing other than that. The same type of people come for weddings and events too. They want that environment to have a nice evening and just bring relaxation and show them what the little gem is that they found. I hope they're here for a long time. So I really feel this is a good move to support them and the business that has and influences everything they're doing. So thank you.
From the water school, 1102 South Central. It's no secret that I have fought for the quiet enjoyment of my home for over the past 8 months. Equally as important, I have fought for the integrity of the Golden Magnolia Resort and Spa, and now for the success of their fine dining room, which is open to the public for breakfast at this time. 6 years ago, we stayed at the White Orchid while looking for a home in Flagler Beach. It was a surprisingly luxurious experience. Back then, the White Orchid had speakers around the pool that added a subtle background of spa music during the day and early evening. When the Golden Magnolia purchased the property, they immediately began to invest in the enrichment of the resort and spa experience. Included in the renovations were upgraded speakers to enhance the spa experience on the front and rear terraces. I walk by the Golden Magnolia almost daily when Annie, my dog, and I make our way to clean up our section of the beach. Never once have I heard the music coming from the speakers while walking by the resort, from my home, or from around my pool. What I do notice from my large picture window are the patrons who spend $350 per night to stay at the Golden Magnolia. They leave the property and make their way on foot north along A1A. Like my husband and I 6 years ago, they stroll toward town to spend money at the various restaurants, shops, coffee houses, and ice cream businesses within PARB Beach. The first time we stayed at the White Orchid, we had dinner for two with ice cream at the Walker Cone and visited Frankie Allison several times before returning home to Delray Beach. Recusing myself from the vote is the right thing to do. But I would be remiss if I didn't remind the Golden Magnolia owners and staff that the music, small jazz or the like, along the adjoining neighbor's fence to the east, is zoned residential, and the volume is limited to 60 dBA from 7 to 10 at night, and down to 55 dBA from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. respectively. The Golden Magnolia is of great importance to all businesses and residents of our city and contributes greatly to Flagler County's tourism. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Okay, seeing none. It appears that if you stream music at a low level, it's my opinion that there's no reason why not to continue to do so. And if we put that into our motion, then at any time they could come back for an entertainment license for a specific event. Or
A special, they
event
could do a special event, right?
So that would still allow them to continue to do weddings or other special events.
Mhm.
Okay. I am, unless there's some other comments, I'm looking for a motion.
I move that we approve application OE-22-0901 with the limitation to only have streamed music or ambient music, no live entertainment.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Congratulations. Okay, item B, application request approval for an outdoor entertainment permit, Finn's Beach Side Pub, 101 North Ocean Shore Boulevard. Annie, do we?
So this one's a little bit different. Finn's has been, they've had an outdoor entertainment permit with the city since we started this program. This year, on March 10th or March 11th, it was right around midnight, so I'm confused as to the time, and the officer notes that in his report. Officer Jones was doing his rounds and heard the music and stopped proactively and took readings. Those readings are included in your packet, and he issued Finn's a warning notice for it being over the decibel levels that were allowed for that time of the evening in their zoning. Since that was issued, that triggers an applicant to go back through the process again of renewal. So instead of automatic renewal on October 1, they have to come back before the PARB and the commission. And this is the only warning that the applicant has received within this year's time period. It also triggered a time clock that if they had received another one within so many days, within 180 days, um, they would receive a written violation instead of going back to step one again. But they haven't done that. So I'll let the applicant.
Speaking of our board members, my name is Daryl Mulvena. I'm the co-owner of Finn's Beachside Pub across the way. We've been in business 17 years. We've had live music for all of those years, and whenever the permitting process started, we got a valid permit. We had one. We've had one infraction in the past year. That was in fact Bike Week, Thursday at Bike Week. We take full responsibility. I take full responsibility for that infraction. Unfortunately, our protocols, noise protocols, weren't followed on that instance. We are doing a number of things to address any further potential occurrences of noise violations, such as making sure that the speakers are put inside the gazebo stage area and not on the deck area and pointed westward towards the ocean. We're kind of changing our band lineup. Changing our band lineup in that we have less full bands and more singles and duos and a little lighter programming. We've reactivated our decibel meters. There was a time here when this was quite a contentious issue. We had decibel meters. We've reactivated them, and we are taking readings on site and off site when we are having live entertainment, and we will conform to the ordinance. We'll do a better job of policing ourselves, and with the help of the FP, inside the police department, who we have a really good relationship with. We continue to provide quite entertainment. In conclusion, our outdoor permit is a vital part of our business, and we feel a vibrant, fun upper deck with music is an asset to our community within ordinance limits, of course. Again, we're requesting that you all renew our outdoor permit. Thank you.
You in the corner as well?
No, sir.
Okay. Are you part of the public?
I would like to do that on behalf of Finn's.
Well, as soon as I open it up to the public, you can.
I'm in employees.
Same answer to do that.
Yes, same answer. So they would plug. Scott, you have?
No questions.
And there haven't been any complaints by the public, right? That was only the police officer who rode by.
I have received, well, actually, Janelle received it today, a phone call from a resident, and she wanted to say something or us to convey a message. And I told her, we don't, she can email it, she can write it, we'll copy it.
And nothing came.
Or she can come and speak, and nothing had came.
Then I had no issues.
Same question, 180 days and no complaints.
No, ma'am.
Monitor yourself.
Yes, we do. We have protocols in place. This is a vital component of our business, and we want to be good community members. And we are kind of ground zero for commercial right there on our two highways, facing the ocean. And like I said, we want to be good community members. We will, police ourselves, and we will take citizens' concerns very, very seriously.
So I thank you for taking responsibility.
Thank you.
One complaint in 12 years is pretty good. I like that. I hope our standards are not for perfection. So that's a good job, and I appreciate your comments about the sort of lineup you're going to have in the future. That should help you attain your goals of, staying within compliance, but also keeping the crowd in the air. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
I do have some questions, and I have the utmost respect for your business and what you do and the pleasure that you bring. But I do live on the island, and I think it's my responsibility to ask a few questions, and I'm not being disrespectful.
Yes, sir.
You're in the downtown business district. You're not near hotels. You're not backing up to residential zone. But I just wanted to ask if you personally live beachside.
I have a residence beachside, and I also have a residence on John Anderson. So I'm in Marina Bay. So yes, I do have a residence.
Is that where you live? You stay at Marina Bay? That's what? How many? That's 20 blocks away.
Yeah, that is right on the edge of Beverly Beach, Flatland Beach. Correct.
And I was going to ask you if you have a decibel reader, because I think that's really important, and I like the rest of the PARB board, I commend you for reactivating them.
We all do. These are through our iPhones, and they're quite good decibel readers. So and we've started, as I said, on-site and off-site readings, just to be aware. Some music sounds different to some different people. It's a subjective thing, and it's louder to some, and maybe not so loud. But if we have a standard, where we can go out in the park here, or we can go north the street or two, and see where we stand. That that we're trying to be proactive is I guess what I'm getting to.
And there are people that think those do not work, but I've read briefings from Yale and things like that. The ones on the phone are pretty accurate, and at least you're making an effort there. And then my next question was, what steps do you take to ensure the entertainment on-site management respected by your enjoyment? You proactively answered that question. I remember the night of the citation because it was right after a commission meeting where the commission was stopped and they said, hey, can you go over there and take care of that? And then come midnight, it looks like the music went right back up. I've also been in here in commission meetings where I've felt it in my heart, the bass coming from there. So I think we would all be naive to think that that's the only time that it's any kind of exceeded, and I don't think we would argue with that.
No, there's been no citizen complaints. I know you all are coming out of a commercial building after hours. That's what you stay in, and you're hearing the music. There's quite an open area, obviously, from the deck to here, and this is the first structure that gets to the sound waves. A lot of it depends on which way the wind's blowing, the humidity, the type of music, the setup that the band guy has. There's so many variables, and we try to control as many as we can, and sometimes we slip up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
listen, you're in the moment. I get it. I appreciate your knowledge because everything that you just said is true. Humidity, direction, wind. There's nothing between here and there to block it. The last question that I have for you is that I went on to the Clyde County property appraiser, and I see that your building is a 63 by 49 structure, which leads me to believe that the patron farthest from the stage is probably 55 feet. So, considering that I walk my dog every night by the Wickline Center, and I love it when you're playing the Latin music because I dance all the way down 9th Street. But considering that I can hear it all the way down there, I just wonder if you think there's room for improvement in turning down the volume just a little bit while still creating a festive atmosphere for your patrons, because I mean, it's 9 blocks away and I'm dancing by the tennis courts.
There's always room for improvement, whatever it is.
And I respect that, and I thank you for taking my questions.
Okay, now I can open up to the public. Sarah, if you want to take a seat.
My name is James Sullivan. I'm the senior entertainer. I don't live in Florida Beach, but I've been here about 8 years of my life. For 7 of those 8 years, I've been responsible for music every Monday night and every Thursday afternoon. It's a goal of myself and my band, respectively, to stay at a reasonable volume, and we take the steps to make that happen. I'm a trained audio engineer. That's what I do for a profession. I'm a studio musician. And that's how I take this into the live performance. I install the speakers that are the house system at Finn's. So when it's time to hook it up right, to making sure it's at the right volume and turn it on and off properly, that's all been my work. We measure every single place that we go to, Finn's included, especially when I play a place that's a quiet volume place. I measure ambient decibels, and I measure ambient decibels outside of the venue and try to stay within reasonable. Usually next to traffic on A1A out here, we're going to get 75 decibels during the day. That's quite a bit. I try to match that. I don't want to be beyond it. We have had some staff changes, and we've had some people come through that we can't control all their gear. I personally took steps and installed speaker mounts inside the band shell of my own accord for everyone to use. We encourage everyone to use them because it keeps the speakers inside and not blasting everyone in the face. It makes for a more intimate performance if you're bringing your people closer to the stage. And I've been doing this a long, long time. If you blast out everybody that's there in front of the bar, that's half the bar that can't enjoy your performance, can't buy food and drink, and you've ruined your experience. I would like to think that me holding this position and as a repeating Monday and Thursday is exceptional in my line of work. Normally musicians come and go out of places and they're new hires. Vince and I have always worked tightly together, and I try to work tightly together with them to make sure that not only we, but everybody kind of plays on the same team because of stuff exactly like this. I know nighttime stuff can kind of get out of hand. It's very easy, especially in this direction, like Daryl said, with being a straight shot from the stage to this part of town. Bass moves differently from treble through the air, and it kind of moves through everything. If I would make any recommendation, it would be later at night to not have subwoofers on the speakers, just what we can have. If I myself or my band's performances have offended anyone, I greatly apologize, and we do take active steps to make it better. And I, of course, am in support of their application. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
John Woodard, just real quickly, I want to say that I support this. This is an ideal location for an establishment like this. I've been there a few times. I think they handle things really well. I think the owner coming in here and being accountable, I think is something that I have a lot of respect for. A lot of people come in and try to spin things, and I think that that shows the character of the owner. And so I hope we approve this. Thanks. Thank you.
Just a comment from staff, and I'm here for commission meetings, and I hear your band playing earlier in the evening. I can hear it, but it's not offensive. It's it's not outrageous music. It's kind of nice. The issues, and when I hear complaints from the elected officials, which you'll probably hear when you go before them on Thursday, is the DJs. And for any establishment in the city that's had a permit, I repeat this often, the most complaints come from DJs and karaoke. Yes. If you can avoid those two things, you've got it made.
I'll close public comment and bring it back up here. I personally have no problem. Zero, one event in 12 years is quite a percentage of good housekeeping, so I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to recommend approval of OE 2209-18.
I second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Can I just say one more thing to both the applicants? I just did want to let you know that Commissioner Sherman sent an email stating that he will not be able to attend Thursday's meeting where both your items will be on that agenda for final consideration. And he's asking the commission to table this to our September 22nd meeting. I'm not a mind reader for the other officials. I don't know if they'll do it or not, but I just wanted to let you know that that is a possibility. If that happens, I will not be sending out additional notices because it will be announced in a public setting.
Item C, application SP number 22-09-01, a final site application has been received from dental office complex at 2400 New Boulevard Beach Village Shopping Center. Parcel comprised of plus minus 2 acres. Larry, you have?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, it's a final site plan application for a dental complex. I believe the name of the group is Parkland Dental. Our representatives for the owners here this evening, both the engineer, as well as representatives from the architectural group. That would be happy to respond, I'm sure, to any questions. I provided the staff report. Basically went item for item through the code regulations for non-residential buildings for the general area of the city. With the exception of 3 or 4 comments about the architectural matters and the architectural details that are required for such things as articulation, massing, fenestration, and so forth and so on. I found all of those to be compliant. There are 3 concerns that I did have. One is with respect to a ladder to access I'm presuming the mechanical equipment. I'm recommending that there is no ladder guard that I see provided in the elevation. The type of ladder they're using to me is an attractiveness and speed the way it is. So I would say if that's the type of ladder that they're going to use, that we require a ladder guard be placed on that so the general public or whoever could not gain access to the roof. I did not see any exterior light fixtures provided, both for the structure as well as the parking field. That is a requirement for final site plan approval. And I did not see a detail. I may have not spotted it, but I did not see a detail that addresses screening of the mechanical equipment on the roof. Other than that, as far as meeting the architectural guidelines, I recommended that we'll get to the site plan in a minute, but as far as the architectural, I would recommend approval only insofar as meeting, again, like I stated earlier, the requirements of the architectural regulations. The site plan in your packet if you will turn to some added items that were placed on the dais this evening, I would like to cover a few items on the site plan. And if you'll turn first to the two-page document, the first of which has a site plan, multicolored, and the other attachment to it are building elevations, but I want to address the top page first. Early in the process, I did respond to a preliminary site plan that was sent me, and I provided these comments that you're looking at in return. They speak both to primarily parking matters, parking insofar as not maintaining the separation of the building from parking. There was a inadequate sidewalk width, that being inadequate if a vehicle was parked, that the 2-foot overhang would encroach 2 feet into the sidewalk, reducing it from 6 feet to 4 feet, which I find inadequate and also another comment was made about cross-access. If you look to the lower right of the diagram, you'll see a highlighted yellow area. I tried to superimpose into the drawing potential for parking spaces should the balance of the property be developed by the same ownership, or should the parcel be split and there's another owner and another development. Either way, I felt very strongly that, as has been done for the other parcels along the frontage of State Road 100, that a means of cross-access be provided. Site plan, I did receive a site plan in return. I'm not certain that it is in your packet, but what was addressed, I'd like to go over it, and what was not addressed, I'd like to speak to as well. And what was not addressed was the cross-access. If you look at the site plan that's available to you, it's actually on, if you lift the pages and turn to the second drawing that shows the dumpster site, you can see there is no cross-access provided. Although this is the original diagram, the modified one did not show cross-access. There's actually a hedge that goes along the entire perimeter of that eastern side of the building. They did provide wheel stops, which is sufficient. There's nothing that prohibits the use of wheel stops in our city current regulations. So that issue of the setback from the building to parking was addressed by putting the wheel stops in, moving the vehicle back 2 feet. The overhang would not encroach into the sidewalk. I also asked that they consider providing what I call a safe haven. If you look at the bottom of the same picture with the yellow highlighting on it, you'll notice along the frontage sidewalk with green superimposed on it. It's the bay of parking that shows 12 spaces along the frontage of the property. They're showing a sidewalk connection, which is good, to State Road 100. However, once you get into the property, you're either walking or riding between 2 vehicles. I just feel, for safety reasons, both to owners of vehicles and both pedestrians and bicyclists, either leaving or entering the property, the best practice would be to provide some separation between those parking spaces. I will say, in terms of parking, the applicant has provided in excess of the number that's required. For a dental office, it is 8 spaces per dentist. They propose to have 2 dentists, which requires 16 parking spaces. The question I have that's not in our code is, that's 8 spaces per dentist. Is that for clients? Is that for staff? Is it a combination of both? With that being said, I feel there's room to reduce the number of parking spaces, and I believe some improvements can be made for pedestrian safety, vehicular safety, and I'll get to that in a minute. 29 spaces, there was a reduction of 1 when they responded to some of the comments I made, so they currently have 28. Again, require 16. That still leaves 12 spaces. I feel by losing another space or 2, or maybe 3, that there's still sufficient parking. And again, based on the nature of this development, there's a multitude of parking spaces, perhaps not on site, but in close proximity. Should someone be shopping and they have a dentist appointment, they will be able to walk there. The other issue that I saw, and did not address this first go around, they provided 2 handicap parking spaces. They're located in the front of the building, but they are not as close to the front entrance as they can be. My recommendation is they shift those 2 handicap spaces to the east, so that essentially both those spaces are directly in front of the proposed entrance into the building. Lastly, I'd like to address the dumpster. If you will look at, provided two drawings, one with the current location of the dumpster and the second drawing that shows a proposed relocation of that facility. In its current location, I have a couple of concerns. One is you're restricting access to only one way. The way it is shown, if the sanitation truck were to back into that, essentially the entire drive is blocked. Yes, it's only momentarily, but it may not be. I feel for the interest of all, for the greater good of all, that number one, the location should allow options. And by that, I mean means of ingress and egress. The more you provide in a situation like this, I feel the better you are. So on the sheet that shows the proposed location or recommended dumpster location, the reason it's placed there is twofold. Number one, in the current location, it not only blocks the drive, but it also would block a parking space. And that would be the most northerly parking space adjacent to the current dumpster location. By rotating it on the angle that I'm showing, facing towards the perimeter road, and these are exact dimensions, and what you're seeing are superimposed sanitation trucks into the site plan. You have more than adequate space to bypass should the sanitation truck be backing into access the dumpster. There's pros and cons. The pros are what I said. I believe it allows ingress and egress from different directions. The con would be, and I don't think it would be of any magnitude, is that if they were to access the dumpster from the perimeter road, obviously the vehicle would have to stop it and have to back in, so there could be potential to block the perimeter road only in means of gaining access. But during the actual maneuver itself, when they're static at the dumpster site, it would be free of any encroachment whatsoever, and there's generally at least 2 or 3 workers on a sanitation truck. So I just offer this as an option. for consideration. There's nothing that mandates it. I'm just looking at this from the purview of serving the greater good, like I said earlier, for all. That being said, I'm happy to respond to any questions. Hopefully I didn't confuse you. Okay.
I will bring it back up here to the board. Thank you, Larry, for that explanation of the architecture and the site plan. And I will start to my left, which is Scott.
Nothing at this moment, that's what I'm still digesting.
Kathy?
Well, I think that we've lost the Key West look. You know, it's a building that's gonna be viewed on all four sides. Yes. And I think it should look attractive on all four sides. And, you know, just putting awnings, that seems to be what they've done to get the book a little bit up. You know, this is the entrance to our city. We are a scenic city, and I just think it could be more attractive. It could be more the look of Publix. I mean, instead of cover Publix, you know, we went to a lot of trouble there, making Publix the way it was, and CVS across the street. And I don't know if this is the same look. That's all.
Do you want me to respond to that?
Yeah.
Again, like I said earlier, in my staff report, I addressed meeting the architectural requirements. If you're asking me about the theme of the building, no, it does not meet the theme of, and by the theme, I'm talking about the characteristics of the building. I think architecturally, it's very well done, but I just believe it's out of place. That's my own personal opinion. I did include the fact that well, the tire, to allude to that, remember they came for concept review, so we have not yet received that. They will have to go through the final site plan process, and we'll deal with that when we see how they responded to our comments. This applicant elected to go directly to final site plan review. I offered, to them whether or not they wanted to use the concept plan process, but for sake of time or whatever, staffing or whatever, they went directly to final site plan.
Thank you. Scott?
Thank you, Larry. And I think the decision to skip past concept review and go straight to final is why we're here right now on this issue. Because we did spend a lot of time with the tire retailer discussing the Key West theme during their concept review, and now they're taking care of it, and we'll see what they do. But in this case, they want final approval. I commend the architectural aspects to it. It seems to be good with some of the modifications you suggested. But I am concerned about the theme, and the fact that the concept review process was skipped over, subject to anything else that's presented tonight. I mean, I would be in favor of tabling it and let them take another stab at it. Thanks.
Brenda?
Thanks for bringing up the handicap, because it was extremely odd to me that the handicap was away from the front door. Plus, when you're talking about sight vision on that corner, it would be less intrusive and dangerous to pedestrians and vehicles alive if the handicap was moved closer to the door. I want to go back to your suggestion about the dumpster, because this was, one of two of my main complaints, and I was going to ask you if you would explain it, and you eloquently did. But I just have a couple comments. One is that it doesn't bother me that in the present scenario, that in the 5 minutes when they were back in there, that a couple of those parking spots would be impeded, because it's human nature that everybody's going to move toward the closest parking space to the door, so that doesn't bother me. What bothers me a little bit is in the suggested scenario, unless I'm looking at this incorrectly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, at this point, we're moving the congestion closer to a pedestrian lane and the artery that people coming into the plaza and exiting the plaza takes. So even though it's early in the morning when most of the trash is picked up in these commercial sites, Publix is open, ahead of time of this dumpster. And it just kind of bothers me that in this scenario that we're suggesting to them, that we're pushing the activity into a more congested and possibly dangerous environment. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so coming down here doesn't bother me at all, because the only people that's going to be affected are the ones that are coming into the building. And I know people are always late for the dentist because it makes them nuts, but then they're flying around, looking around there. But I don't know, I'm uncomfortable with this suggestion.
Okay, if I could respond to that, just a couple, I failed to mention a couple other things. One I think is pretty significant, and remember now that we require dumpsters to be enclosed. Generally, it's with a 6-foot structure, be it block or fencing material. If you look at the current location, if you're entering the site from Beach Village Drive, the perimeter road, your line of sight essentially is cut off. And I know we're not on the street, we're in a driveway, but your sight line is impeded. And also what disturbed me is if you look at the very front of the dumpster site, it teardrops down, as I call it, to about a 1-foot radius for curbing. So it appears to me that that gate is essentially at the curb end. And that's bothersome to me, especially again if you're entering with a vehicle or something. You have 6-foot fence. People being the way they are age-wise. Again, I'm looking at the pros and cons of each. And that perimeter road, yes, it's perimeter road, and I think that's the only negative that I see is the one that I pointed out. But again, I'm looking at it from the reality of if there's 2 workers on the truck, that they can handle traffic, and if that truck does have to go out into the roadway, if it enters from the perimeter road, if it doesn't, if it comes in through the south and to the north, it would not have to go, it would not encroach into the drive, into the perimeter road, I'm sorry. But either way, it's a detail. Again, I think what's most bothersome is blocking the road, the sight line, and that curb edge coming down to a 1-foot radius, which is basically a point, and the gate or edge of the structure being right there.
Okay, thank you. And my last, I have 2 quick comments, and I'm a minimalist, and I really like things in the building, but not there. We are a beach town, as it was mentioned that this is the gateway to our beach town, and I'm with Scott as far as tabling it to ask for something that's a little bit more palatable. in keeping with that plaza. To me, that building, I don't know how familiar you are with this area, but Airport Commons, this is a building that should be out there. That would match it. And, I always ask this question, and I just wonder if you are considering, exterior surveillance for the yard. And the reason why I ask that is that we have a small police force, and we have limited funds in applying cameras around our city. And I think that respectfully, it should be a business owner's responsibility. It's not a law or requirement to, assist our small police force with, video. And that's it.
Thank you for that. Larry, I respect your opinion on, the sight line is very important to me, so if the existing location of the dumpster enclosure was remaining there, coming around that corner, if you're ingressing, those couple of parking spaces are vulnerable if you're backing out. Also, the north elevation is facing Publix. Again, I love middle ward. You have cornices, they have all the architectural details that are required according to our development code. You are showing a high parapet with a change in material at the corner, which is the east and south elevation, which make your main entry. I understand that. I also understand that your roof is much lower than the parapet height. That's why there's no mechanical masking, because parapet, if you look at the dotted line, you see where the top of the roof is, it's well below the lowest portion of the parapet. Now, that main entry is in fact just a parapet. It doesn't, then it transitions back down, because when you look at the north elevation, you see the rear of the parapet. I like the fact that the portion of the scale of the entry is larger. Then you have this insinuation of rafters coming out to support an overhang, which I think is out of scale to the proportion of the height of the building. Perhaps if you looked at Publix, you would see that they have these big knee braces that are very decorative that could, in fact, give it a little more of a Key West look. And maybe rather than a flat carpet, maybe there's a mansard. That's up to you all, but that would bring a relationship back to a detail that's already on the main Publix structure. I like the change in materials, the materiality of it. The north elevation, though, is facing Publix, and it has just two doors. It has the scored stucco, which I love. It doesn't inflate the cornice, the parapet. But that should look more like a front, and what's not shown is the dumpster will be in front of it. So, I don't know what you do unless you can landscape the rear of the building, the north side of the building. I looked at the landscaping, it's mainly 24-inch high landscaping. So, even though it is the rear of the building, it's facing Publix, and the majority of people on the perimeter of the road are going to be looking at the back of the building, which this really should have four faces, four fronts. So that would be my recommendation, that somehow the rear, first off, you have to do something with the ladder. It has to be safe. No one can just walk up there. So I'd recommend the ladder guard for sure. Unless there's somehow you can get to it from the interior and not even have a ladder, which would even help that facade. It turns it into a very industrial looking rear of the building. They would be my recommendations, and I think the architecture can very easily be transitioned to be softer with very minimal articulation or detail. Looking at me, Larry.
Well, I just have a comment, because this is one thing confusing about the ladder, because if you look at the north elevation, and if you look at the higher roof line, it appears like part of the doorway is showing. And I'm a little bit confused by that. Why would, it appears that obviously there'd be interior access if there's a doorway there. And I'm not sure if that's represented on the doorway or not. It appears to be. It does appear to be. But the ladder, again, just throwing this out from an architectural standpoint, and the representatives are here, and certainly welcome to speak. But it would look better to me if the ladder were recessed. So I know it's more expensive, but if you put a break in the wall and recess that ladder, it's not part of the facade elevation per se, and definitely keep a ladder guard. But I agree with you, if there's a possible way to access the mechanical equipment from the interior, much like the tire store is proposing to do, that's fine. But the ladder, the way it's appearing here, it just doesn't work.
It's ugly.
And I also agree with you on the four sides, because of its location being an outbuilding. We need to be some. Yes.
Again, I do like I like the fact that the parapet change. I like the fact that you have banding and cornice that goes around. You do have those false rafters. They're not really a corbel, but if you introduce them as a vertical knee brace, is the architect here?
Yes, a representative for the architect is here as well as the engineer.
Answer some of these if we talk to you. Can you come on?
First, do you all have color elevations that have some extra illumination?
I just have these, if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, I have the same one. Everyone have them? Okay.
So, one of the questions, when you look at the north elevation and you look above the white cornice, is that a door on the far end, which is the entry parapet? Or is that just misplaced?
Are you talking about on the
roof.
in front of the roof ladder? On the roof
No,
ladder?
no, it's to the left of the roof ladder, behind the tall entry parapet.
Oh, yes. Typically, there's a small door there for if there's lighting within the signage, so they need to be able to access that, and there's a structural walkway inside as well.
Okay, so it's really just a corridor, so to speak?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that would give you an opportunity to do something other than a flat roof, possibly. Are they stucco reveals, these on the facade?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Could I have her name, please?
My name is Emily Gatos. I'm a senior architectural designer with Larson Design Group.
I forgot to ask you. Is there any possible way to get the ladder access to the roof from the interior, or is that just not really feasible through any?
I would have to speak with the client about that because they have their interior layout. So I would have to see how we could fit that within their layout.
Yeah, it would have to be a mechanical roof or something that you could have put inside.
Right.
And then as far as blending the architecture with the Key West, the coastal design feel.
Yes.
And I think you can achieve it very easily.
I agree.
So that's something we'd be willing to look at.
Yeah, this was my first time in Flagler Beach tonight, so I totally see what you're talking about. It's a beautiful city and a lot of nice design elements and beach theme. I think we can address that in a few ways, as we talked about the corner element where we see the kind of wood flat look. It's a Nikiha panel system. I think maybe if we incorporate that material on the other corners of the building. I also know that Publix has those beautiful cream slat awnings as well. So maybe if we change out the awnings, that's totally possible.
And as far as the north elevation, it does look like the rear of the building. And if you've been on the site, you've gotta see it from all four sides, so
Right.
it really needs to be, has four fronts, so to speak. Even though we know the corner has the main entry, you know, that maybe something can be done. You know, electrical is electrical, it comes underground, but perhaps the ladder, I don't know, maybe, I have even seen, well, when you put the ladder guard on, you're actually crawling up a tube, so to speak, but it's caged. Maybe it's enclosed with some kind of break pad or something.
Right, yeah, absolutely. At the very least, that's what we would definitely do.
Okay.
I'm gonna look into reassessing options as well.
Okay. And then finally the dumpster enclosure. Do you have any feelings about that? I know it's located on the site plan, and that might be a civil engineer that put it there versus the architect. But I hate the idea of hiding or creating a blind spot. But it's not the end of the world. You know, our sanitation doesn't pick everybody up usually early in the morning. But again, if we're trying to take the north elevation and create four fronts, now you've got this closure that's 6 foot high. I guess we could landscape around it. You have to state your name and
Yes, sir. I'm Dylan Tarr with Tar Group.
Okay.
We're the civil engineer, as you said. We looked at multiple ways of configuring the dumpster. The owner typically does not like people to pull in and be welcomed with the great dumpster, right? Everybody wants to avoid that, which is the reason for turning the dumpster away. I think we're happy to add some landscaping back there to kind of, you know, make it a little bit nicer. It's going to be a masonry enclosure.
Larry, not to interrupt you, but Larry, what if it was rotated 90 degrees because can't they open up the gates and move the dumpster out? Or versus on an angle with that little 1 foot radius?
Mr. Jordan, do you by any chance the size of the dumpster that they would have there? I can't imagine it's
Probably a 6 yard.
Small, dentist's office.
It's probably a 6 yarder.
I mean, I would have to check with the sanitation supervisor. Now, we did discuss the option that I had recommended here. He did consider that more favorable. But I can go back and ask him. I get your point. They just rolled it out.
Yeah, but then what it would do is it would take away that blind spot because you can push back at there. And then you can landscape around it. So essentially be parallel to the parking space. You'd have a nicer radius rather than that point. If they could just roll it out. I think they do that at the Catholic Church actually. I'm not sure. Sorry.
They do roll it down.
Yeah. They are my comments for right now. And if it's a possibility for just to look at the dumpster, maybe.
Yeah,
I think. Talk to Rob, sanitation guy.
Yes, I would.
Okay.
I think that'd be a good solution. If a rolling dumpster is an option, I think that works for us. The reason we stuck with this was just we couldn't get the truck to maneuver well.
Sure.
In and out.
I understand. Okay.
I don't know if anyone's going to address some of the other comments about the site plan, but I would like to.
The handicap, I think, could easily be shifted.
I think we can move it over one more spot. Yeah.
The entrance is on the south side.
Correct. We typically cannot put it immediately in front of the front door just because of how the slopes and the elevations work out. But I think I agree we can get at least one more spot.
What?
Oh,
No
yeah.
comment.
And then those safety green spaces that you had introduced.
So the number of parking spaces came up, and I think to understand kind of our response to your comment there is, there are two teams of dentists that will work this particular office. Each team has the dentist and then 7 people. So there's a team of 16 people that are going to be rolling into this office for a full day of work, which that's your parking requirement right there. So in addition to that, they have somewhere between 12 and 15 operatories with chairs in the office. So if they have a full house, I mean, we need every bit of parking we can get for this place.
That term you use, are you speaking like of a hygienist, something like that?
What do you mean?
Well,
The 12 to 15 operatories is a dental care.
okay. You have to excuse me, that's a new one.
I'm learning.
Does your client own the whole property or just the red highlighted area?
They do own the whole property.
Okay. So will there be any issue with extending that cross access? That's what we're talking about too. Is we pave what, 10 feet of it, 8 feet of it, introduce it.
Basically, I call it a teardrop. And whether if they want to, let me say it this way, I'm comfortable with the applicant leaving it the way it is, however, with a note, that should the easterly parcel be sold or improved in any form, that the cross access must be provided. So, not knowing who's going to be here when that may happen, I would feel more comfortable, frankly, if they just go ahead and stub it out, so, and it's done.
Currently it's 1 2-acre parcel. The idea is that they thought it was big enough. It's way too big for just a small dental office. So if they do develop, they'll have to go through the subdivision process, and they're more than happy to require shared access to that.
So that could be at that point.
Because you guys, I'm assuming you guys will have to review the plat for the subdivision.
There wouldn't be a statutory plat, it would just be a minor subdivision, basically a lot split, so it would not go through the planning process. And that's my concern.
And you wouldn't have the ability to require any kind of.
Well, let me say it this way. It depends when this plan goes through the process, because we're rewriting our land development code. In the new land development code, it requires cross access. Right now, I'm twisting your wrist a little bit.
They are perfectly agreeable to providing cross access to whoever that adjacent user is. I think that's for that to be a condition. We just didn't want to assume that it happens and put a stuff out that may or may not provide any benefit.
Let me ask this, can it at least be imposed on the final site plan, either in hash lines, so it's kind of shaded, so it,
We can definitely add a note.
and leave it,
If additional development happens, this is.
Does the landscape plan have to change, or they can leave it as long as it
no,
does?
the landscape would stay.
Were there any other site issues that I forgot? I think we got them. So those extra little green spaces for like a safety purpose, rather than walking to the car, we need those spaces.
We need the spaces for the user because they're super efficient in their office. And the reason we kept it as is, in our comments was, it's a very similar situation to what you see at the loading area for the handicap spots. That most people will use to walk up and down.
If you rotated the dumpster enclosure, could you have a little more space?
Potentially, yeah, if that works out, we'll go back and look at it.
One thing to keep in mind, you're showing your parking spaces 10 by 20, the minimum is 9 by 20, so you went to a 9-foot wide parking space here, you may likely pick up a space, or you can provide that safe area that I'm speaking about, whether it's impervious or pervious, but just pick up a couple of feet each way. But you can reduce those spaces by a foot each.
We look at that. The owner actually has a preference for 10-foot wide spaces, just based on their typical clientele.
Okay.
Stinking
Thank you,
Lincoln.
you've answered my question.
I'm talking about senior citizens.
No comments.
I'm gonna open it up to the public now. You can have a seat, thank you so much. I'll open it up to public, any public comment? Seeing none, we're gonna close public comment. Okay, any further discussion, Scott?
No, now that I've heard everything, and I just have to agree. I mean, the dumpster is an issue, but just the look of it, we gotta do something with that. It's got to blend better with that whole community or that whole center, so to speak. So, but I think they're on that, and I think they sound willing to do it.
Thank you.
Nothing.
The landscaping, Larry, is okay? The landscaping?
Yes, ma'am.
Good.
Good job. The only thing is they do have to provide irrigation. And again, I might add as we know, the civil plans, even though they're included, they're not required actually till building permits. So the engineer has not yet provided comments on this initial submittal. So I'm sure they'll catch the irrigation.
I appreciate all the comments from Larry, and I appreciate Mr. Charles' response also. So I'm optimistic that the concerns that have been expressed have been heard. And so I look forward to, if we take action to table it in order to allow these things to happen. I think it sounds good. Sounds like high likelihood that we'll get what we're looking for.
I'd like to request a bonefish grill on the second lot, please.
Why? National chain, we like our little mom and pops.
So that being said, can we make recommendation to table it, or do we need to ask the representatives? Or do
The board has several choices. You could recommend approval, you could recommend denial, you could recommend to table, or you can recommend approval with conditions. So you have those. Correct me.
So if they themselves can't table it for their own facility.
So we can approve with recommendations, but they're still gonna have to come back with the architecture, or someone who's gonna look at that.
Well, if you approve with conditions, and it then will proceed directly to the city commission without your having reviewed the changes.
Or, if I may, or it could be that the applicant could consent to table.
Right, and tabling it here so that it comes back to here rather than to commission. Because if you
So-
deny it, recommend denial or approval, then it goes.
Okay, so if we recommend denial, it'll still go to the commission.
Right.
Yes.
With the applicant? consider tabling it?
Yeah, so that's something we could do and come back here and revisit.
That'd be great.
So you move the table, you don't move to recommend tabling, you just move the table.
We move the table
Until the next regular meeting, I believe. What you're allowed to do.
Do we vote on that?
Yeah, I need a motion.
Motion to table.
Second.
Can we just take
Do you want a date certain or up till when the applicants come back and we, I mean,
My recommendation actually would be to facilitate, Mr. Tarr's down here from Indiana, and he's getting to the time of the year where he may want to be here. But no, in all seriousness, my recommendation would be to facilitate matters, both the site plan and the architecture. When you go back with your team and you address the matters, send them down to my office as PDF. I'll distribute it to the planning board, get a reaction, so when you come back next time, you're on your way. Because I would hate for it just to wait until you come back the next meeting, there's comments, and here we go again. So if you can do that in the interim, and we'll table it to whatever meeting you want, and if you can do that with sense of urgency, likely we can, if you like, we'll put you on next month's meeting agenda. That's not a problem.
That sounds good. Yeah, I think. The issue on the site stuff is, do they allow the roll-off containers? So you can give me that answer pretty quickly.
I was supposed to ask you to come up to the podium.
thank you.
I hate to do that.
Not very. If we can get an answer to if the sanitation service will allow, or if they provide rollout containers, I think that's kind of the hinge on if we can address a lot of the more substantial modifications.
What about tipsters?
We use a lot of tippy carts, the big PVC. They're about this tall.
It's probably about 50 gallon.
Yeah.
And they're plastic and you can roll them out, but they're not a dumpster.
I can talk to the operators.
I'm just throwing out some options, but
The 6-yard dumpsters I know that they're using now our sanitation department. I just had to work with them for a DOT permit across the street, and it is a 6-yard rollout dumpster that they do use, or the tippy carts. A lot of people are moving to the tippy carts.
Options.
Yeah, I'll ask them.
Thank you. Thank you. So, there is a motion. Is there a motion?
I have a motion by Scott Spradley to table, and I missed the second. I'm sorry.
I think I made that.
Okay.
Okay.
And we're tabling that to the September or October.
But it was an undefined date, so it's just on the table. Until
Just the next meeting.
Table.
Okay.
Well, it would be until then. Well, was it not that it would be to a date when answers are provided? So pulled off the table whenever somebody's ready for it to be pulled off the table.
Until applicant returns.
just as to verbalize, the next meeting is scheduled for October the 4th.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can address comments pretty quickly. So
Yeah, they're not that big.
right, okay. You guys think you can-
You already have the design in your head.
Yeah, I think these comments are they can be addressed relatively quickly. So October 4th, there's no issue for architectural side.
If I could have both your business cards.
Okay, so do we need to just ask for a vote, or do you need to?
Just a voice vote is fine.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, you're going to table it. Thank you so much.
Number 6.
Number 6, board comments. I'd like to say, I thank you all for participating this evening. Larry, thank you as always.
I'll move to adjourn.
Did I second it?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
The answer for everything.
You don't know. I had to see her. Because we're trying to do something more. Not sure what's happening.